And hello, everybody. Thank you for joining this very, very exciting presentation. I'm aware we're short for time, so I'm focusing on one thing that we as practitioners can do to make a difference to the quality of the play that children have. Because very often people worry about, are there learning links? Of course there's learning links. I'm doing this in a less obvious way, but I'd just like to give you some food for thought. So the only main message I'm giving you today is this. Okay, resources, we want to focus on variation and not repetition. And I'm going to illustrate that with my pegs. So it'd be very easy for you to think, oh, the children need some pegs for den building, and you go out and you buy a pack of 30 pegs that are all the same. My argument is that that's a missed opportunity on many levels. First of all, if you ask for donations of pegs, you will get a much more interesting variety. From a learning and play perspective, you then start increasing the amount of creative and problem-solving possibilities. So when I say that, I want you to have a close look at these, and I want you to think, why would I say asking for different pegs would increase the mathematical possibilities? Or it could be technological, or it could be literacy possibilities. But why does it lift the learning?
There's more questions.
Tell me more.
There's things to talk about. There's colours and shapes and different types of ends, different strength of bite of the pegs.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Yeah, if you were... Oh, you go, Michael.
Different materials. I can see some chrome, maybe, on one of them.
Oh, yeah. Like, as engineers, they've got to know the difference between plastic and metal and rubber.
Different colours make you think of different inspirational things. So the orange one made me think of a crab pinching.
Oh, more stories. Each one could have its own story.
If I was building a den, I might be thinking, oh, that one looks a bit smaller. It's not going to be strong enough to hold this pole, but that one's a bit bigger, so maybe I can put a heavier tarp on my den.
Yeah.
And you've got two to match and two haven't, and oh.
So do you see now that because we have done a variety of, and this is just pegs, okay, I haven't talked about ropes, I haven't talked about tarps, I haven't talked about all the other sorts of loose parts you might have in your kit. But basically, I always say to schools, don't go out and buy a den building kit with 6 blue tarps all the same. Beg, borrow, ask for donations, and really make the most of the variety, because the variety, as you've already pointed out, increases the learning. Because every time a child goes to use one, it'll have a different tensile strength. Some will be great for den building, some will be rubbish. Some will be very good for hanging things up, others will be rubbish. That sort of stuff. So all around, what we've quietly done is lifted the learning, but we haven't, we've actually enhanced children's play and not taken anything away. This does not require an adult to go, oh, have you noticed? All an adult has to do is to say things like, can you pass me a yellow peg? Oh, I didn't mean the one with no spring in it. Have you got a yellow peg that's got a spring in it? Because I need a bit more strength. That's all an adult needs to say. So suddenly we've got much more interesting dialogue going on. So we apply that concept to everything when it comes to resourcing outside. So I'm just going to give some other examples. I often have white sheets. Now this isn't any old white sheet. I sound like a Marks and Spencer's advert now, don't I? This happens to be 1 metre square, which is very hard for you to see online. But the reason why I have a lot of my materials in 1 meter length or 1.5 meter length is so that when it comes to mathematical possibilities, if children are playing with these, they're actually getting a feel for what 1 square meter actually feels like. And at the moment, we have a national problem in the UK in that if you ask your year 5 or year 6 children, what does a square meter look like? Most of them have no idea. But so this is straight away when they're playing with this, they're just getting a feel. And of course, if we're talking about variation, not repetition, we might go for other things. So here's another example of a white sheet. This time I've pimped this one. So this one has a grid on it now. No expenses spared. It's just done with permanent marker pen. Now, my top tip is when you do this, make 3 up, because the first one takes forever to do. But then you keep that precious one as a template and you can just use it to draw over. So this one has been drawn over at least 2 or 3 times. And I pop it in the washing machine once it really gets really smelly and grubby, but otherwise it's just left as it is. Now, this isn't any old grid sheet either, because actually, if you cared to count, it's a 10 by 10 grid sheet. But furthermore, because I want to extend the mathematical possibilities, I've made sure that each one precisely fits your Dean's block of material. So suddenly, that's almost the ideal size for playing maths games. So if I wanted to use this sheet within a formal lesson, I suddenly have a grid. But most importantly, the children will just play with that. It might be a cloak, it might become a game, but it doesn't matter. The point is that we've offered those mathematical possibilities. Another example is some tarp. So we all know that children will wear out tarp quicker than anything, especially if they use it to slide down hills. All right, I've worn out a lot of tarp that way. But we want to make the most of every single resource. So once you start getting holes, you can put in, if I see, different shapes. Now, the children can do this with you. Again, this is no expenses spared. If you look closely, that's a rectangle. It's actually made from a matchbox, and I just reinforce it with masking tape. Sometimes you get sort of just holes like that from ripped rivets as well. But what I've very carefully done here is I've applied the geometric principles of rotation, of shape, of scale. So we have small and large if it's exactly the same size, of translation, that means just moving it but not changing it, and of reflection. So this may just look like a play tarp. The children will see it as a play tarp, but I, as an adult, should I wish to use it in a different way, can point that out. And when I talk with the children during the play, I can just say, you know, because they really want to do things like throw things through. So you can say, well, why don't you go for the shape that's been rotated? That could be easier to throw the ball through. That's all you need to do. And you've got the language that you're providing and a play possibility, but you're not making it dull. You're not going, oh, I wonder which is the most interesting shape here. You know, can anyone see a rectangle? We're not interested in that. But what we're interested in is how do we just tweak the resources to transform the learning that happens with no effort, and it's still play. Does this make sense? And are there any questions? Okay, I'm going to just, if there's a little bit more time, I'm just going to add in a couple of other useful things to think about. So I didn't have time to unravel my rope, but any rope, if you ever have rope, be it washing line, be it other bits and pieces, for whatever purpose, put tags at 1 meter, then it becomes a giant measuring tape, which is absolutely fantastic. So I use those an awful lot for information handling work, like creating graphs outside, but children will just use it in their play. And all it literally takes is a little bit of mask marking tape. That's electrical tape, if you can see there. That's all it is, at 1 meter intervals. Okay, during COVID, I had it at 2 metre intervals. Other things, old telephones, old calculators, my Forster resistance, look at that, syringes. Very often, if you know somebody who works in a laboratory, they can give you a variety of syringes. So I have, this is my biggest one at 60 mil, but sometimes you have ones at 10 mil, 5 mil, 20 mil, and they are all just brilliant. And I actually think every play worker needs one, Charlie's Angels style. Oh yeah. If you want dice outside, do you see these indented ones? These are the ones that I find are the most robust. So this particular example, I have ones like this that look very battered because they're used for playing football. All right, so that's the sort of level of toughness you want in a resource. If you've got more fragile resources or little fiddly things, I just suggest that in your pockets you always have a couple of dice. You might want a sand timer, because every kid so often wants to be timed, and I always have a helpful little snake. So this is Sid, the stripy 1 metre rope snake, and he helps me with measuring activities and for checking things out when I'm just going around. But again, I don't force the learning. It's just part of the play of being a play worker. All right.